The conference room felt like a war zone. Harper Quinn stood at the presentation screen, her carefully prepared marketing strategy displayed behind her, while Julian Sterling systematically dismantled every element she had spent 3 weeks perfecting. "The demographic analysis is superficial at best," Julian said coldly, his steel-gray eyes scanning her slides with obvious disdain. "And the social media integration strategy reads like something a college intern would produce." Heat flooded Harper's cheeks. At 28, she had earned her position as marketing manager through exceptional work and creative innovation. But nothing she did was ever good enough for Julian Sterling. "With respect, Mr. Sterling," the focus groups responded overwhelmingly positively to this approach. Focus groups can be manipulated to respond positively to anything. "I expected original thinking, Miss Quinn. Instead, I received recycled mediocrity." The other team members shifted uncomfortably. Everyone knew about Julian's particular hostility toward Harper: 2 years of constant criticism, dismissed ideas, and professional antagonism that made her daily existence at Sterling and Associates a special kind of torture. Harper forced her voice to remain steady. "Perhaps if you provided specific direction instead of vague criticism, I could deliver work that meets your impossibly high standards." Something flickered in Julian's expression: surprise, perhaps, at her rare pushback. He was devastatingly handsome in that cold, severe way that made women stare and men feel inadequate. Dark hair, sharp jaw, broad shoulders beneath impeccably tailored suits. At 35, he had built his family's advertising agency into an industry powerhouse. He was also the most infuriating man Harper had ever encountered. "This meeting is adjourned," Julian announced abruptly. "Miss Quinn, revise the entire proposal by Monday. Monday is 3 days away. Then I suggest you work through the weekend." He swept out of the conference room, leaving Harper trembling with suppressed rage. Her colleague and closest friend at the company, Meredith Chen, appeared at her elbow. "That man is impossible. What did you ever do to make him hate you so much?" "I have no idea." Harper gathered her materials with shaking hands. "From my first day here, he has treated me like a personal enemy. I am beginning to think my very existence offends him." The office party that Friday was mandatory, a celebration of a major client acquisition that Harper's team had actually secured, though Julian would never acknowledge her contribution. She wore a deep green dress that made her auburn hair gleam, determined to enjoy herself despite her tormentor's presence. 3 glasses of champagne loosened her tension, and she found herself actually laughing with colleagues for the first time in months. Then Julian appeared at her elbow. "Celebrating your mediocre work, Miss Quinn?" The champagne made her bold. "Celebrating the account I landed while you criticized every breath I took during the process." "You landed nothing." "The client responded to the Sterling brand. The client specifically requested me for future projects. Perhaps your assessment of my abilities is flawed." Julian's eyes darkened with something that was not quite anger. "You have had too much to drink." "I have had exactly enough to finally tell you what I think of your management style." Harper stepped closer, her inhibitions dissolved by alcohol and years of frustration. "You are a brilliant creative director, but you are a terrible human being. You treat me like garbage for no reason I can identify, and I am exhausted from trying to earn approval you will never give. You think I treat you this way because I disapprove of your work? Why else would you? Because I cannot trust myself around you." The confession emerged rough and raw. "Because every time you walk into a room, I lose focus. Because maintaining professional distance requires treating you like an enemy, since treating you any other way would be inappropriate." Harper stared at him, her champagne-fogged brain struggling to process his words. "That is the most ridiculous." Julian kissed her. It was fierce and desperate, years of suppressed tension exploding in a single moment of contact. Harper's back hit the wall of the empty corridor where they had somehow migrated. Her hands fisted in his shirt, pulling him closer instead of pushing away. "This is insane," she gasped against his mouth. Completely insane, he agreed, kissing her deeper. What followed was a blur of heated touches, whispered warnings, and a locked office door. They came together with angry passion, 2 years of hostility transforming into something primal and consuming. Afterward, reality crashed over Harper like ice water. This was a mistake, Julian said flatly, already rebuilding his walls. Obviously. She straightened her dress with trembling hands. It will not happen again. Of course not. They returned to the party separately, pretending nothing had occurred. For 6 weeks, they maintained careful distance. Julian's criticism continued, perhaps even sharper than before. Harper told herself the encounter meant nothing, a moment of champagne-fueled madness best forgotten. Then she missed her period. The pregnancy test showed 2 pink lines that changed everything. Harper sat on her bathroom floor, staring at the undeniable evidence, her mind reeling with impossible implications. She was pregnant. With Julian Sterling's baby. Her enemy. Her boss. The man who had made her professional life miserable for 2 years. And she had no idea what to do next. Harper tried to hide her pregnancy for as long as possible. She wore loose clothing, scheduled doctor appointments during lunch breaks, and kept crackers in her desk drawer for the morning sickness that struck without warning. For 8 weeks, she maintained the charade, enduring Julian's criticism while carrying his child in secret. The truth emerged during a quarterly review meeting. Harper was presenting revised campaign metrics when nausea overwhelmed her. She barely made it to the restroom in time, leaving the conference room in stunned silence. When she emerged, pale and trembling, Julian was waiting in the corridor. "You are ill," he said flatly. "You should not be working in this condition." "I am fine. Just something I ate." "You have been sick every morning for weeks. You think I have not noticed?" His gray eyes bore into hers. "You think I do not watch your every move, despite my best efforts not to?" Harper's heart pounded. "Julian. How far along are you?" The question struck like lightning. She stared at him, her carefully constructed denial crumbling. "How did you?" "I am not stupid, Harper. The symptoms, the timing, the way you avoid coffee now when you used to drink 3 cups before noon." His jaw tightened. "Is it mine?" "Yes." The word emerged as a whisper. "There has been no one else." Julian's composure cracked. She watched emotions war across his features, shock, fear, and something that looked remarkably like hope. "Why did you not tell me?" "Tell you what?" "That the boss who has tormented me for 2 years is going to be a father? That our one moment of insanity created a permanent consequence?" Harper's voice rose. "You made it very clear that night was a mistake. I assumed you would want nothing to do with a child." "You assumed wrong." Julian stepped closer, his voice dropping. "You assumed everything wrong about me." "Have I?" "Because from where I stand, you have spent 2 years treating me like an enemy. Because you terrified me." The confession was raw. "From the moment you walked into your interview, I knew you were dangerous. Not because of your work, which is exceptional, despite what I have said, but because you made me feel things I had sworn never to feel again." Harper's breath caught. "What things?" "Want. Need. The kind of vulnerability that destroys men." Julian reached out, his fingers brushing her cheek with unexpected tenderness. "I was engaged once. She left me for my business partner. I swore I would never let anyone that close again. Then you appeared, and every defense I built started crumbling. So you attacked me instead. I kept you at a distance the only way I knew how. By being cruel enough that you would never want to get close." His voice cracked. "I never imagined it would lead to this." Harper placed her hand over her still flat stomach. "This changes everything." "I know." Julian covered her hand with his. And I am terrified. But Harper, I do not want to run from this. I do not want to run from you anymore. What are you saying? I am saying I want to be involved. In the pregnancy, in the child's life, he paused, vulnerability naked in his expression. In your life. If you will let me. The Julian who emerged after the revelation was unrecognizable. He insisted on accompanying Harper to every doctor appointment, sitting beside her during ultrasounds with an expression of wonder that made her chest ache. He ensured she never worked late, arranged for healthy lunches delivered to her desk, and quietly reassigned her most stressful projects to other team members. You are confusing me, Harper admitted one evening when he drove her home after a long day. The man who criticized my every breath now acts like I am made of glass. Perhaps I am finally being honest instead of hiding behind cruelty. This is a lot of change very quickly. Julian pulled into her apartment complex parking lot but did not turn off the engine. Do you want to know why I was truly terrible to you? You said I terrified you. There is more. He stared at his hands on the steering wheel. My ex-fiancée, Rebecca, she worked at the agency. We were together for 3 years. I gave her everything, trusted her completely. Then I discovered she had been having an affair with my partner for over a year. 3 months before their daughter's due date, Julian took Harper to dinner at the restaurant where they had their first civil conversation, the night of the company retreat when everything had shifted. I have something to ask you, he said, reaching across the table to take her hand. And I need you to know that this is not about obligation or responsibility. Harper's heart raced. What is it? Julian produced a small velvet box. Inside rested a stunning sapphire ring surrounded by diamonds, not a traditional choice, but perfect for her. I spent 2 years being cruel to the woman I loved because I was too cowardly to admit my feelings. I wasted time we could have spent building something beautiful. His voice trembled slightly. I do not want to waste another moment. Julian. Harper Quinn, you challenged me when everyone else backed down. You saw through my armor when I tried desperately to keep you out. You are giving me a daughter and a chance to become someone better. He knelt beside the table, oblivious to the staring restaurant patrons. Will you marry me? Not because I am her father, but because I cannot imagine my life without you in it. Tears streamed down Harper's face. Yes. Yes, I will marry you. He slid the ring onto her finger and kissed her while the restaurant erupted in applause. Their wedding was intimate, close friends, family, held in the same mountain resort where they had first surrendered to each other. Harper wore flowing ivory that accommodated her 8-month pregnancy, and Julian cried when she walked down the aisle. His vows made everyone weep. I treated you as an enemy because you made me feel things I could not control. I criticized your work because your brilliance threatened my carefully constructed walls. I was cruel because kindness felt too dangerous. He took her hands. But you saw past the monster I was becoming. You gave me grace I did not deserve. I vow to spend every day proving worthy of that grace, as your husband, as your partner, as the father of our children. Harper's vows were simpler but equally powerful. You were my worst boss and somehow became my greatest love. You taught me that people can change when they choose to. I vow to remind you every day that vulnerability is not weakness, it is the bravest thing we can do. Their daughter, Eleanor Grace Sterling, was born 6 weeks later, a perfect blend of both parents with her father's gray eyes and her mother's auburn hair. Julian held her in the hospital room, tears streaming down his face, and whispered promises Harper would never forget. I will never be cold to you. I will never make you doubt my love. I will spend my entire life being the father I never had. Harper watched her husband cradle their daughter and felt her heart expand beyond anything she had thought possible. What had begun with hatred had transformed into love. What had started as a mistake had become the greatest blessing of their lives. Some love stories begin with romance. Theirs began with war. And it was more beautiful for the battle it had survived.